Yo, what is up? Looks like we are live. Okay, so let's see. Provisions for effective tax rate, marketing spend, manageables. Okay, I'm just looking through the Adobe 10K guys. I'm kind of interested in this is the 2021 10K. So let's actually see what exactly is going on here with Adobe. Okay, so Creative Cloud annual recurring revenue, um, Document Cloud and digital media. All right, cool. So this is just like your Adobe subscriptions, which is fine. This is just telling us how they make their money. Um, I don't care about this calendar. Yeah, they got COVID boost. Sure, why not? Increased 23% year over year, 24%. Sure, but again, I'm thinking that's just mostly COVID boosting. So if you break down the revenue percentages, you get interesting. Hey Justin, what's up? Yeah. So I'm looking at the numbers for Adobe actually. I'm trying to see about how I would value the companies based on the 2021 numbers. So the past 3 years have been really nice to Adobe because you have COVID boosting and whatnot, and so you get this very nice 25% year over year growth top line. The question now is like, okay, how far in the future would I project this? Because it's a mistake to think that you can get 25% year over year forever. Because once you do that, you take the discount rate, you eventually get to infinite company valuation, which doesn't make sense. Because if you take the discount rate of cost of capital, like let's say I have a company that's growing at 15-20% year over year, and I assume that happens forever. Eventually, you consume all the you consume all the capital that's in the economy or all the productivity, which is a mistake because no one company should have all that power or can have all that power. So if you think about the way the world economy grows, right? Let's say it grows at 2-3% compound over year over year, and you have some amount of companies that get turned over, you count inflation, et cetera, et cetera. You basically get up to 10 to 12% of growth that you can reasonably achieve on average. So it's a mistake to think that a company can grow more than that for forever, especially when you consider the discount rate. So in other words, if you look at this percentage of revenue, the only thing you really need to pay attention to is this subscription. Product and services are negligible, and people are saying attaching a story to it. I think that's a mistake, because if you look at it, COVID boosting doesn't allow people to purchase product, and there's no services. No one really uses Adobe Cloud for document storage or whatnot, so I don't really count that. Okay, so now you have the cost of capital. Wait, is this the digital publishing? Okay, so this is the breakdown of it by digital media experience and publishing. So this is a breakdown of revenue. So I don't care about this. The only thing I care about, I would say, is probably this top line. Digital experience, I think, is a nothing. If I know Adobe, it's basically almost all Photoshop, Premiere Pro, and whatnot. Okay, so digital cloud, digital media, document cloud. I think this is a mistake. The only reason people will sign up for Document Cloud is just because it gets bundled with Creative, and no one I know willingly wants Document Cloud. So again, I think this 32% is a misnomer. So now, okay, so 57% it comes from the Americas, 27% from Europe, and then Asia Pacific and whatever. Okay, so everyone grows at the roughly same rate because of COVID. That's fine. Cost of revenue, basically nothing. 8% of the... Yeah, it doesn't really grow that much. So it's basically all pure profit. You can consider it all pure profit. So the next question becomes, okay, how likely is this? Yeah, operating costs, they grow 17% compared to 25% top line, but it's all pure profit at the end of the day because it's just software that you're selling. All right, non-operating income expenses. So yeah, so as the top line grows, the bottom line grows. All right, sure, whatever. But I think that if I go to the numbers, let me go to the consolidated numbers, financial statements. So if I look at the balance sheet, okay, this is a bullshit expense. This is bullshit because let's assume that the property and equipment is bullshit because no computer retains its value unless they depreciate it very heavily. So just back of the envelope calculations here. Let's see, $27 billion of total assets minus the 12 here. Let's call that 15. 15 minus 12 of total liabilities. Actually, I just use this equity. Yeah, your equity gets completely wiped out, actually. So let's just assume that you get 0 value from the book. Revenue, top line, 15 billion, sure. Cost of revenue. So let's take this 14 billion. So they want us to believe 9, 11, 15. So that's 25% year over year. I don't believe it. I mean, again, this is the COVID boost. So I'm going to assume that this actually doesn't grow by much at all. So let's take it conservatively, right? Operating income. Okay, so that's 5 billion down here. But the reason why I think the market's valuing it at around like, at the time of publication of this was like 280 billion or something. So you really want to look at the cash flows in order to do that. Like the way that a lot of these subscription services are being valued is literally just based on the cash flow that you supply out from operating activity. The way markets really judge these tech companies that operate on subscriptions is like, yeah, what happens if we turn off the capex and let this ride? So what I mean by that is that if you take this 7.2 billion, right? Let's say you take this 4.8 that's coming in through cash, and then you add back in the operation expenses, the non-cash based operation expenses like stock and whatever, depreciation, etc. So you get like 7 million per year. But that doesn't make sense because they also did like this acquisition here, which I don't know, proceeds of short-term investments, whatever, repurchase. So they bought back their stock in really, really high amounts. So let's just take the operating, right? So they have 7.2 billion in cash. But then why the hell is there 15 billion booked for net income? That doesn't make sense, actually. That overly inflates the number. Yeah. This doesn't make sense. The heck? Oh, yeah, you have operating expenses, right? Okay. So so out of this 13.14 billion that you have coming in for gross profits, and then here's your net. You only have like 4.8 of that coming. Oh no, this is your net income. This is your net income. Add back in the non-cash expenses. Let's assume like all this non-cash expense comes in 7 billion, right? Let's assume 7 billion. There's no way you get to what's it called, 400 or even 300 billion-dollar market cap. You give this a 30 multiplier. That's the only real way, or like a 30 to 40 multiplier. How the heck do you get 30 to 40 multiplier? I mean, I guess that it doesn't really make much sense to me in my head. Like, what, every single subscription is what, $20 a month per product? This would imply that top line expense, I don't know. Like you have to do the math on the number of subscribers. So let's do an exercise. How many subscribers does Adobe have? Okay, so they say that, okay, let's use this and take it at face value, 26 million. And then average number they paid for. So average. So if I use the pricing here, let's say Creative Cloud all apps. Let's be generous. Let's be like a little bit generous here, and let's say $50 per month, $600 per year, right? So with the math here, 26 million times 50, let's say 50, yeah, $52 per month times 12. What do you get? 16 billion. Like, how do you get 16 billion, right? But then let's say that you've tapped out like 26 million subscribers. How do you get to 300 billion from here? Let that ride for 10 years? I guess. I'm guessing this is like how the market's valuing it. They assume that these 26 million are going to be sticky and growing, which the Canva episode kind of proves it's not true. So, I don't know. I don't see how you get to what, I'm at 144 billion, but that's just me. I mean, I get why some people might be valuing it the way it is right now. So, what do I think of the recent Adobe and Figma news? I'll talk about it afterwards. But basically, this is like what goes on through my head when I'm doing this valuation here. So yeah, this 16 billion comes pretty close to the top line revenue we calculated actually when I said there's like 14 or 15 billion coming in from revenues. So my valuation here is actually kind of correct. Let's run on my client and we'll chat more about this shit. Oh wait, shit, my Zoom. Why does Zoom always like freaking kick me out? It's not nice. Calendar. Alright, let's see if he shows up. I might as well answer Crow's question. I have a question. What should the pay be for early career Swedes at Google? You can use levels.fyi, but honestly, I think if you're focusing on the pay, I think that's the wrong thing to focus on. You should focus on building your career, because in the long run, you making an extra $10,000 or $20,000 or even $50,000 doesn't matter that much. Hey man, what's up?
Hey, Ever.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you, man?
Yeah, catch me up on your practice. How's the practice been?
It's been good. I've been doing the EPI problems. It does help having the checklist as I'm doing these problems.
Yep.
Then in my retrospect, I can see, okay, this is what I missed. This is what I should improve on. So yeah, definitely seen an improvement there. Because yeah, a common pitfall for me is doing a problem I've seen in the past. Just like my mind starts racing. So
Yep.
having an approach like this, it helps. It helps to keep my composure.
Got it.
And for the system design, I've been reviewing my problems that I did in the past. And after doing a problem today, I eliminated the common mistake of putting emphasis on things that don't matter. Like, for example, with the Twitter problem, the Twitter index search, right? I wrote a bunch of diagrams for the write service. That was not necessary because that wasn't core to the problem. So yeah, I've been trying to drill down that as well.
All right, cool. Yeah, I see that you filled out some notes in the prep doc. Okay. Yeah, so I think that you just took this from my Google Doc, my guide. So it's fine. Yeah, slow down. Have you seen the pattern before? Don't jump the gun. No matching bullets. Yes. Keep the note. Keep real code to a minimum. Pseudocode. ELI 5. Yep. No jumps in logic. Logical and sequential. Don't do things in your head. Rambling. Yes. One thing at a time. As you're doing examples, are examples clean and proper? No confusing variable names. Yeah. Also, your examples should be meaningful. Should test one idea. So keep that in mind. 5 and 6 are a little bit tightly coupled in that regard. Okay. Next one. Does your design cover all the asks in the problem statement? Yeah. Basically cover. Did you cover your ass? Your design logical and easy to follow. Yep. Keep reading the problem over and over until you fully understand it. Yeah. And if you don't understand it, just try an example. And in a real interview, you try an example and just ask the interviewer if you're thinking about it the right way. But yeah, because if you don't understand the problem, you can't answer it.
Okay.
You're dealing with some unknowns. Have some failure that can be translated. Have you done something similar? Yeah. Yeah, this is not a bad heuristic, but I would keep this at the very end of the list as a tool, because in general you want to solve everything from the ground up.
Okay.
And the I've seen something similar before is a tailwind that you shouldn't count on. It's a windfall, you know. Okay, so the rough time frames. Yeah, don't focus so much on the time. You know, if you like end up doing like 15-20 minutes of coding, should I say 15-20 minutes of pseudocode, but then it only takes you like 5 minutes of coding, that's fine. I don't care. But this is like, hey, this is like your red flags or green flags or whatever. This is like, okay, something may or may not be here, but it's just one of many ways to measure your if you're approaching things the right way. But I would argue it's one of the weakest ways.
Okay. So I guess the question on that is like, okay, so if you do these problems, how much time should you be giving yourself?
You
Um,
so the idea is to be able to throw your entire problem solving approach at it.
okay,
And
okay,
once you've really tried it, then you can't solve it, then I would say it's okay to give up a little bit on it, and then but really work through. But then all the time that you would have spent on the problem, you should spend it on the analysis of your mistakes. Like, why couldn't I solve it? What did the book do that I didn't do? Why were they able to get a problem? Was this logical? Was this not logical? If
yeah,
you're not spending time on the problem, you're spending a time on reviewing your mistakes.
okay,
That's
okay.
the rule. So.
Okay, yeah, I have some questions later for that. Because I saw a problem, I did not get it all.
Uh-huh.
And how to capitalize on that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I'll ask that later.
Sure. Otherwise, I think what your checklist here is fine. Compare walk the test case, track variables, make sure the test case proves the answer, look at thoughts, step by step, delta, what was the idea missing, and why you went astray. If it took too long, what did it take to get faster without sacrificing stability? Yes. Again, everything here, your problem solving approach should be systematic, and then you have like a bunch of tools that you can use, or which in this case is like the questions that you ask yourself in order to get towards the right solution or to be able to narrow down what the solution might be.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. And then you have your system design checklist. That's fine. Okay. So you mentioned it in like I think one of your emails, like to look at your practice diary, right?
Yeah. 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 Just seeing if I'm like on the right path. Is there other things I should consider when reviewing these problems?
Okay.
Because I did look at your guide and the problem, the practice diary. So yeah,
Yep.
just double checking there.
Okay. Yeah, and I posted in the sample practice diaries. Here's some people's docs that I've worked with in the past and like their corresponding level that they tested at. And I even have the playlist of like, hey, here's how I look and judge mistakes in general. So you should have plenty of
Okay.
material.
Okay. Cool.
Okay. So yeah, let's see. Which one do you want me to look at?
I would say the problem solving one. Fuck, what's the file name? 1 second. It's
one?
reverse all words in a sentence.
Which one?
Reverse all words in a sentence.
Ah, okay. Got it. So do you have
Yeah.
the?
So.
Okay, go ahead.
Uh huh.
I was saying, do you have the sheet that you did it on?
Oh yes. 1 second. Sorry. Shit. Where are these links? Yeah. Let me send you the Dropbox here.
Sure.
Yeah. So I'm mostly curious to see. Okay. How can you improve as I'm coding these problems, right?
Okay.
And the second one was Ticketmaster. If we have time for that one.
Sure. Why not? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see this one. One with iterating until I found a white. Okay, I kind of understand what went wrong here. So let me see what you got. You sent me the Dropbox in Zoom chat?
Yes, Zoom.
Okay, let me take a look. Okay, you sent me 2 Dropbox links. Got it.
It's the first one, yeah.
Okay, let me go ahead and... Okay, so this is your replay, right?
Yes.
Cool. Wait, what's the second one then?
The second one is a system. It was a systems design because I didn't know what we were going to go over today, so I did both. It's system design, Ticketmaster.
That's fine. We'll do both.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's see what you did here. You have the zip file for me. Let's open it up and then. Okay.
Reverse words in a sentence, given a string containing a set of words separated by a white space. We would like to transform it to once the word appears in reverse order. Okay, so for example, Alex likes.
Okay. Good.
Will be turned into Bob likes Alex. We do not need to keep the original string. What does that mean? Not need to keep.
Okay. First things first. There is a little bit of a here. Let me share with you. Share my screen. Give me a second. Share screen. Here we go. Do you see this?
Yes, I see it.
Okay. So I don't. So no mention of punctuation. Let's say white space. What do you notice here in your example that may or may not set off red flags? Do you notice something a little bit strange in the first 1 minute? What you've written down? Hello?
It's just saying it just says that I guess it's the assumption, right, that there's no white space in the beginning.
Well, you did write that down, so let's just say it's only white space. You've kind of resolved that. That's fine. That's not what I was referring to. Do you notice anything else that might be strange?
I didn't know, not the punctuation. No, I can't think of it right now.
I would say the punctuation, the capitalization, right?
Oh, okay. Oh, shit. Okay.
Why does... I mean, you have Alice likes Bob, and then Bob likes Alice. But in the first one, Bob is lowercase. Second one, Bob is uppercase.
Yeah, I see. Okay.
Yeah. It's like, well, if we're talking about words and strings, what are the different ways we can modify strings? Is it just reversing? And if we're reversing all words in a sentence, does it have to be have proper cases? And so that's where I think you have a little bit of an issue. That's the first red flag. It's a small detail, but it's also a big one. Because when you deal with these details, one small detail can mean a world of change. So it's important to catch these. And again, the only reason I picked this up was because I've made that mistake with strings before. So it's just knowing what are the different ways strings can be affected, manipulated, etc., etc. So I would have asked that.
Okay, brute force naive. I can think of doing a splitting the words by white space. That gets saved to a list.
Okay.
I can then call reverse on that list.
Okay.
Okay, so place words into a list.
Sure.
Okay, place words into a list. I turned into a list.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that splitting words in a list and then reversing it is definitely a very self-explanatory one. I think it's very obvious it worked. It's like you could do a quick example just for the sake of the exercise, but I would say for something like this in a real interview, I think everyone understands it.
Okay, just skip it. Okay.
If it's very plainly obvious and very easy to understand, then you don't need to do it. But for the problem we did on Tuesday where it's like, two loops and whatever, that can get a little bit hairy. It's very difficult to visualize when you just describe it in words. So it's not having that sense. I don't mind you're doing it right now like this because I want you to get used to having to show the example of what you're saying, but just as a future reference.
Okay.
That makes sense. Now, when you do this, the interviewer is going to call out, do you know how reverse works on a list and what the runtime is? Do you call that out too?
Yes, I say it's O of n time.
Okay.
Yeah, because you have 2 pointers, one in the beginning, one in the end. You swap the values.
Okay.
And then you increment 1 until they overlap and stop.
Okay, but then also you need to be able, do you know, there's also the point of transforming a string into a list as well.
I see. Yeah.
That's a very
Yeah, I do call it out because it's going to use O of n space. So later down the video, I do point those out.
Okay, that's fine. I just need to know if you do because I don't want to keep scrubbing through the audio for the sake of time. But yes, like whenever you call like a standard library, you should know how that standard library works.
Okay,
any good interviewer will grill you on that. So it's fine. It's fine if you understand. Like, hey, I'm iterating through the string, and whatever is a white space, I delimit and add that string to the list, and then after that, you do a 2-pointer swap. Easy. Everyone understands. That's very self-explanatory. That's fine. Okay, so split, reverse, join, fine. Okay, good. You call it out. So 3 different operations use a majority extra space to improve. How can you do this in place and reduce the time space complexity? That's fine. Yeah, I have no problem you spending like the first 5 minutes doing this. 5-7 minutes is fine.
Okay.
I think it's just 7 minutes because you're talking. That's fine. So, okay, that's fine. ABC. Okay, so let's see now.
Would run that in time. how can I do this without extra space?
Okay, yep, that's extra space, yep.
Okay, yeah, I would need 2 pointers to reverse a word, or sorry, to reverse an array of strings of characters. Okay, that's simply doing a swap. Okay.
Okay.
That would run at n time. Okay, so okay, let's say to reverse a array or car string, start off at no. Okay, to reverse a string, you need a pointer in the beginning and the start and end.
Okay.
While start is less than end. Hold on.
Okay.
Doing this in person.
All right. Did you notice what you did here?
I just went into that. Into the start lesson end without thinking about it.
Close. Yeah, that's pretty close. It's basically like, oh, you're trying to figure out the problem, but you're essentially starting to write the code for it instead of like, it's so much easier just to manipulate the arrows than on the example. Like, I don't understand why you're not playing with the example. Why you're writing it in code, or like pseudocode already. You don't even have the idea, or unless you do.
Okay.
At least that's what it looks like to me. Because you spend an inordinate amount of time on this already, and it's just like I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna go out on a limb here that you don't actually know what your idea is. You only know like it involves something, and you're just writing it for the sake of writing it.
I think as we advance, I do define the reverse operation.
Okay, well, remember, let's take the heuristic from system design. What is the most important thing here?
Having your idea / pseudocode in English.
What's more fundamental than that?
Did I lose the interviewer?
More fundamental.
This goes back to the explain like on 5, right?
I'll give you the answer. It's basically you need to have an idea that works first.
Okay.
It's like how can you? It's like if you talk about something but you don't even know if it works or like what the heck is going on, then it blows everything else out. It doesn't matter if you explain like your 5 if the solution doesn't work. I mean, it's fine if you're just like reasoning it out, but like if you're reasoning it out, I'm not sure you need to write this. If you need to reason it out, why not just like manipulate pointers and try examples and shit? That's what I don't get. So that's what I immediately picked up as you wrote this. Is like I don't think you actually had a solution here. So okay, let's see. So at least you're trying. Now you're trying it. Okay, that's the thing. That this should have come first. So you basically ended up burning 2 minutes of time just writing this random stuff here.
Oh shit. Okay.
It adds up. Like small shit like this can add up and can present a very big hindrance in the long run. Okay, so you're swapping strings. Yeah, I don't mind. This is what you should have swapped. And done your stuff beforehand. I'm fine with that. But yeah, it's just gonna save you a lot of time and grief later. Okay, so let's see. So right now, you're doing ECBX. Sure.
Yeah, sorry for the upper and lowercase. That's the auto format from Google Docs.
Okay, all right. Yeah, just as long as you call that out, like, oh, that's not the way it's supposed to be. Fine.
Okay,
all right. So what? Let me ask you. So you did the single characters for each word. That's fine. But and it does get there, right? So it's like, how can we expand this to? Yes, that's fine. Good.
Spaces.
I like the fact that you actually tried something very simple here, and then just kind of decided to write that down. That's completely okay.
Cool.
How do you expand the deal with white spaces? Like what? I would say your issue here is in the white space is to deal with more complex, examples. Like, why did you specifically call it white spaces? Let me ask that.
That's because I don't know if I mentioned this, but my idea was to reverse the entire string, and then for every white space, because this is going back to the brute force solution, right? You reverse all the words. No. Yeah, so you split it on the white space, right? Then that gives you your words.
Yeah.
And then you reverse that. So my idea here was to reverse everything, and then you're gonna have to reverse each substring that's a word to get the solution here.
I see. Yeah, I mean that's fine. Let's see. Okay, so here, 12 minutes. Yes. Wait, what the fuck is going on here? Hold up.
Okay, what happens if I call reverse here? Let's say it's.
Oh, don't look at the time, by the way.
Let's make this.
It's just gonna show up in the replay.
Example.
Okay.
Okay,
Sure.
So you're just simplifying the example.
SE, right? SE, L.
Okay, yeah, you're using this to represent white spaces. Why not?
Yeah, I think I'm reasoning is reversing the whole string and then doing it up until the white space.
Okay. Yeah, so you do the example,
White spaces.
and then you realize, hey, wait a minute. Now that I did the example, I have to reverse each of the strings onto the white space.
Mm-hmm,
That's
correct.
fine. That's fine. So in other words, in 15 minutes, you were able to figure out the problem. I think that's completely normal.
Okay, cool.
So now that you did that, I'm curious to see how why it took you another 15 minutes to do it, and I would have expected 10. Yeah, you can call the reverse function. That's fine. Sure, and then now you're like working it out. Okay.
You reverse the entire string, right?
Sure.
So I have this here.
Okay, yeah, so I'm okay with you doing this. Spend 5 minutes like actually making sure the idea works. Reverse the string, iterate string stopping at white space, then call reverse on substring. Yeah, so you take the start and then the where you find the white space, and then you call reverse. That's fine. Yeah, you're bulletproof in the idea. Sure, why not?
When you.
Good.
Okay.
Okay, you caught. Yeah, you're supposed to call that out. Sure, why not?
Why is it? Okay.
Oh, hold on. Give me a sec. What the fuck is going on? Yeah. So you spent more time you probably lost like 5 minutes here trying to find your own version of reverse. That's what you're asking me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the interviewer probably would have called out like, "Hey, you don't need to do that."
Okay,
that's fine. I mean, I would say if you took that out, you probably would have gotten to 30 minutes instead of 35. Okay. And then the last 5 minutes is you testing it. Okay, fine.
Uh-huh.
I have no problem with that.
I also noticed they use like the string libraries like find.
Yep.
But you said you should really know how these work in the backend, right?
Yes. If you're gonna use it, you should be able to write out the code like you just did.
Okay.
But I mean, you already explicitly called out, hey, yeah, reverse is just taking 2 pointers and then just making them progress towards the middle and swapping them as you iterate. That's fine. It'll take you like 3-5 minutes to write it. I have no problem with that. And so if you're using standard library stuff, you should know how that works. So honestly, I think if you cleaned up a little bit, your testing is fine, I think. And if you cleaned up a little bit, you probably would have gotten this down to sub 30. So, and I think that's pretty reasonable time for a problem like this. You know, I would a really good candidate would have done 25, but you're just starting out, so yeah, you could get it sub 30 if you cleaned up a little bit. So I have no problem with what you did here. Stumbled me, so let's avoid its future. Different variables in designing code. What do you mean? Let's avoid this in the future. Stumble. I don't understand that. I'm looking at your practice diary right now.
Let me see. Okay, so this is in. This stumbled me. Let's avoid this different. Oh, okay, yeah. So here, what I did was, in my design, I used a different variable name than when I was coding. So that stumbled me a bit, and I lost a few moments there.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a small detail, but it's a big one too. So it's good that you picked that up. Make sure you pick meaningful variable names. That's fine. Okay. You say variable names. It makes it a lot easier. Solution is reverse. So like we talked about that. Make sure that if you're going to use a standard library, and which you can, you better know how it works, and you better be able to reproduce it if you need to.
Okay.
Reverse. Solution use a find to get index.
Yeah, this is the find question I had earlier.
Solution uses find to get index with. Yeah, I think they just use some weird regex operation on the end for like find.
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay. Like as long as you know how the regex works, but I'm not, so I would have done exactly what you did. Like I know how reverse works, but I don't know how find works, so I'm just gonna do things manually.
Okay.
I thi-
What are your thoughts on on this book? Because sometimes the answer can be compact and condensed,
Yeah.
or clever, I would say.
Yes.
Well, what do you think? Just avoid that, or just stick with simplicity, right?
Stick with simplicity. Go up into the point until they get too clever. If it's something that's like reasonably that you can reasonably have come up with, like if you thought about it, that's something to acknowledge. If it's something that they decide to be like super clever about, like fuck that, you know, like you can just like ignore that. But sometimes those clever tricks can help you, so it's kind of good to know. Like if that clever trick is like something that's super obvious, it just comes from like one super obvious fact, you know. And at that point, it's like, okay, well, probably I should know it. But if it's like some super obscure use of like some standard library, I would say ignore it.
Okay, good to know.
Other than that, like I think that was a pretty good shot. Let's take a look at your other problem solving. Did you notice like anything weird like in your practice diary when you were doing it?
Any weird by what do you mean by
something
weird?
that was difficult? Because I noticed like you have a lot jump the gun by recognizing the pattern right away. Yeah. I think this is the first.
Yeah, that's the one we did on the live stream. Yeah.
Good.
I guess okay, so you bulletproof your design, right?
Yes.
But then when I do my code, I want to go ahead and test it again just to double check. Is that fine, or what are your thoughts on there?
In theory, you should going into the code you're committing, right? So your idea should be bulletproof from there. But I don't mind you testing the code after you're done with it. I think the interviewer does appreciate it. Just to, as a sanity check, and I would personally appreciate it too. So don't worry too much about it if you have to check again after you've written the code, because the idea of what we write versus what we have in our heads or our initial idea can be different. So I don't mind that. But again, when you write your code, you're committing to it. So if you find yourself, hey, now after I've tested the code and written it, and I find myself changing shit, that's a mistake that needs to be addressed, and you should look in on the replay.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so I guess this goes back into solidify your idea first, right? Because when I was doing this problem, I missed the case where you have to check when the pointer is at the end, right?
Yeah.
Because first you're checking for white spaces, but you also have to account for the end of the string, right? So yeah. I guess just look at all the scenarios in your testing, right?
Yep. So in this case, I think I'll talk a little bit about this in the guide, but basically, what constitutes meaningful tests? What would be your complete test suite? In this case, the complete test suite would be, okay, what happens if there's a null? If I pass a null into the code, will it work? If I pass in a zero, string of length 0, will that work? String of length 1, does that work? And then string of length 2, does that work? And then character space character, and then word space word.
Okay.
That would or word and then space. I think that would basically constitute like pretty complete testing in my opinion. And so the word space word test would probably be like, hey, what happens if I would only limit it to like 2 characters per word just to keep things snappy.
Okay. And this is at the end, or would this be part of the design?
I would say it's part of the design because you want to make sure your design works under all the situations. But yeah, like as you get better at this, you'll understand, hey, I can test these pretty quickly in like a minute.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah. Cool. So it's being able to understand and prove like, hey, these are all my complete tests and shit. So that's it.
Okay.
I would write that. Make sure you write that down in your prep doc. Make sure that you can bulletproof your idea. But again, when imagine you're signing a document, right? And you're signing. Let's say you're buying a house, right? And your writing code is the equivalent of signing on the bottom sheet that you're gonna transfer whatever, how much a house costs, like what, $2 million, $3 million. If you're gonna pay $2-3 million, you're gonna make sure the fucking fine print and everything makes sense.
Oh yeah.
So treat it like that. You're signing a $2-3 million contract, and you're gonna want to make sure that all your angles are reasonably covered.
Okay.
All right, let's go to the next one. And you want me to look at the system design, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Let's do that. Design Ticketmaster. I hate Ticketmaster. Fuck them.
Yeah.
Price gouging motherfuckers. I don't.
Scalpers.
That is my personal opinion, not the opinion of my employer, guys. Just for the sake of legality.
They don't do. I don't think they do anything about the scalpers, man. Still to this day.
Dude, fuck scalpers. I went to like TI and shit, like for Dota, and like people were scalping tickets so hard. It actually screwed up like what's it called, the tickets for TI 11. All the scalpers bought them, if I remember right. And so, you know, like there's a lot of people who want to go watch TI in Singapore, but then they can't because people like scalpers bought them and then like they're reselling them for 10 times the price.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
insane,
like,
man.
Yeah, that's really annoying.
Design Ticketmaster.
All right, Design Ticketmaster. All right. Online movie ticket booking system. All right, that's fine. Let me load up the answer key for.
Yeah, so my reasoning behind that was because from reading this, I thought, okay, a movie theater is not big, right?
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, if we do Ticketmaster, it's more well known. It's all over the U.S.
Yes.
I don't. So yeah, that was my.
Okay. The thing is that Ticketmaster covers multiple events, multiple theaters, and things, so that's gonna be a bit of a problem.
Okay.
Where's your diary entry for this one?
Line row 14.
Okay, row 14, system design. Got it. Okay, let's actually see what the hell you do here.
What is an online booking system? Movie ticket booking system for purchase theater seats online. Ticketing systems allow the system to browse through movies currently being played and to book seats anywhere. Okay, so I want to go with the approach to solve this for Ticketmaster since it's all over the country online. Good. Events. You want to
Book tickets, be able to browse events. Sure, yeah. Anything else you got here?
Can you share your screen?
Oh yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, thanks.
Can you see it?
Yep.
These tickets.
Tickets, browse events.
Released to other clients.
Okay.
Requirements.
Fixed time to purchase tickets, released to other clients. Yeah. I think it's pretty reasonable for the functional requirements.
Okay.
When I compare it against the book, or whatever the hell they do,
Yeah.
like, select cities, select movie. Yeah, what you kind of should be able to book tickets on the side, browse events. I don't think it would hurt for you to kind of go through the user flow, actually.
Okay.
I think that's something that I would write down in the practice diary. Like, hey, yeah, make sure that because we always go back to the end user experience, right? What does the user expect if they're using it? So you might want to be able to explicitly call out each step that a user does. So if the user is able to book the ticket on the site and browse events, what should that look like? Should they be able to search it by name, or should they be able to search it by city, et cetera, et cetera?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where you are gonna want to.
Yeah, what I noticed with this one, it was more dense compared to like YouTube, right? Because with YouTube, you're also able to search by filters and whatnot.
Yes.
So yeah, something to consider.
Well, with YouTube, you can only search by text and then filter by last uploaded and whatnot, right? In this case, you can actually search not only by the text or title of the event and movie, you can also search by the city that you're in too.
Mm-hmm.
So your thing might be, hey, list all events in San Jose or whatever.
Okay.
So there's two angles of searching in that regard. Whereas with YouTube, there's only really one, right? Because you start with the text and then you parse down the text.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay.
So yeah, I would say the first thing here is to be a little bit more atomic about the functional requirements just by throwing a user at it.
Okay.
Yeah. Waiting for customers first. Okay. And then from there I see they also call out waiting customers should be service first come first serve. Yeah. Maybe that might be worth writing.
What they do is they put them in a queuing system. I missed this part because my assumption was okay, everyone just goes to the site. But yeah, I guess I should have asked myself there what will piss users off.
Yes.
Not being able to buy tickets, right?
Right. So in other words, again, let's throw Kanye at the problem. Let's say Kanye is throwing a concert. So what the fuck do you think will happen?
Scalpers, man.
Yeah, there you go. Scalpers. A lot of people trying to buy the fucking tickets. People are going to be competing each other for best seats and shit.
Yeah.
And I say that as having gone to an actual Kanye concert.
People buying all the tickets, right?
So. Well, actually, surprisingly, there was still enough. It's just that the ones that were closer to the stadium were like basically sold out instantly. So I actually paid like I think $500 for mine. Jesus Christ.
Oh wow. Wow.
But it was good. It was a good ass concert. It was the one where after he resolved his beef with Drake, the Free Larry Hoover one. Like holy shit, it was great. But holy shit, it cost so much money.
Wow.
Either way, yeah, you get my point. The moment like you throw that heuristic at it, you realize, wait a minute, all these people are going to be competing for the same ticket or the front row seats, and so you're going to have to be able to resolve those tail situations and conflicts. So you kind of thought. So in this case, you thought of the happy case, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And you kind of just stuck with that, and so you never really thought of the tail cases. So that's a mistake.
Okay. So
that's the thing I would say here. Okay.
it is basically thinking inversely, right? Like you said the other day.
Yeah, think backwards, right? So now it's like if you have a goal state and you want to know how to get there, you start from the goal state. In this case, I wouldn't say it's like think inversely. I would say think about like various situations. This is like it's good that you remember the invert heuristic, but it's not applicable here, at least not yet to me.
Okay.
This is again, it's just like think of what happens in the worst case scenario. So yeah, so think about like if you've covered your ass for like disaster situations or like highly irregular ones. Okay, so NFR, so you decide to be you choose CP because it was important to booking tickets, yeah, because you don't want users to be. Another way to think about that one is that you don't want users to be booking tickets for seats that are actually unavailable when they see it's available. You want them to be consistent. That's another way to reason it. That's fine. 101 heavy reads, and I actually don't know. What was your reasoning for heavy reading?
Yeah, so if you think of like a concert, right? There's gonna be more reads than writes there.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, yeah. I guess I should put more emphasis on that, but yeah, that was my whole reasoning there. There'd be more reads than writes because of people would because not everyone that goes to Ticketmaster would buy the tickets.
I see. That's not a bad reason. But I think the interviewer would push back and say, hey, why does it have to be 100? Why is it not 50 or 10? So okay, I think you just kind of did the 100 out of habit, but I would encourage you to think a little bit deeper about the problem. Again, I don't mind you doing this. Data will have TTL say 1 year. That'll say save storage. So when you say events, I don't remember being able to search for content in 2017. Perfect. Yeah, that's fine. It's like, hey, let's move some of the data that we have to cold storage. But what is the pain point is throughput, not space. Yeah, so it's not worth beating your head over the storage space either. Yeah, that's fine. But what else do you encounter here? Okay, so the most important thing. Okay, so notice that I in the book, and I would agree with this, is like what would piss off the users again, right? Like what are the things, and they actually this is what they do for the design considerations, right? Let's say that the user doesn't handle partial ticket orders. Right? If I'm ordering 10 tickets, and I can only fill 5 of them, should I get all the tickets or none of them, or some of them?
Okay.
It's like also if 2 users book at the same time, how do you want to resolve it? System abuse scalpers, right? System would spike on popular movies and concerts. Kanye. Again, like these are things we talked about, and I think if you just kind of list out all the things that would piss off the user, I think you come up with a little bit better answer and closer to the book.
Okay.
So I would recommend you actually start writing those down. It wouldn't take you very long. I think it would take you another 2-3 minutes. And I think you get closer to a better answer. But let's see what you do here. Okay, so yeah. Start with application server, something very simple. So then you do event, and then venue, sure.
Yeah, when I noticed these guys, they have like 12 tables. So really, how deep down should you go with this? Right, that's my question.
Okay, I would say that you go as deep as it gives the user enough information to work on. Basically, until it covers your functional requirements. You don't need to go. It's like, for instance, if I think what you have here, event type, yeah, it's concert or cinema or whatever. Seat, event, venue. You might want to have like a seat ID or name as well to it. Reservation, which is like your tickets, fine. And then you might want. I think this is pretty reasonable actually.
Okay.
I would say that. Yeah, I mean they put payment in here. I don't agree. Because that's part of the flow, and why the hell would you want to save the payment anyway? That sounds like a very big security consideration. I mean, yeah, maybe for like saving it to the account and credit card for future booking, but I would say you can deal with it later. So I don't necessarily agree.
Okay, or offload it to like a service like Stripe or one of those, right?
Yeah, I guess. I'm not too sure how exact. I know Stripe acts as a middleman, but I'm not sure if it's saving payment information.
Okay.
But yeah, like I think what you came up here is perfectly reasonable.
Okay, cool.
Let's see, event type name, and then you might want to have like some models for, I would say, location, because if a user's gonna be able to search by location, you might want to have a table or a key index for that. So so that's something I think you missed there. Again, if you just think about the different ways users can search, they have to search by event name, which might be one of your primary indexes, or search by city, which might also be one of your indexes. And then like each of these cities can be like have their own information in it as well. Okay, so efficiency, you have one database, load different users, fix move events to its own database, group tables together that operate together. Yeah, this is not unreasonable, I think. But yeah, this is fine. I would say you might want to put venue and seat actually in the same database, because you might do a join. It's very likely you'll do a join between the two.
Correct.
That might be something you want to think about. And the venue can be at the same event can be at multiple venues. It just depends on the date, right? So maybe it just depends on how you want to structure that. If you want to, let's say you have a Kanye concert in LA, and then he's going to tour New York the next week. Do you want that to be the same event or a different event? You could argue either way, but I think for the sake of simplicity, just make them different events.
Yeah, with their own venue, right? So.
Yeah, it could be the same tour, but it's a different event, so that's fine.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so now what's next? City reservation system, search system, user profile. Let's separate logic for these. Okay, fine. Fair enough. This is reasonable, yeah. Okay, so far so good. 21 minutes in, sure. I think you could definitely be a little bit faster here.
Okay.
But let's see. So the question now is like, okay, the next question is how do these services work? Because you declared like, oh, we're gonna have browsers can search events, venues, and whatever. And reservation, how does the reservation work, et cetera, et cetera. So throw a bunch of
okay.
Yeah, so the thing is that you didn't really, did you describe how it works, or did you just throw a random service at it and be done with it?
With the reservation, I did go somewhat. I wrote like some paragraphs for the reservation. Okay, user.
Okay, let me see where you wrote that in. We received a request from the user asking for tickets to book. Reservation system will save these seats and pay them up. Main site, the user have time to pay. I would ask you to, in fact, I think that's not deep enough. If the interviewer asks you, hey, prove to me, how does this actually work? You would need to be able to have that conversation. So, for instance, is this for the reservation? Is the seat reserved at the venue and shit? And you would need to be able to come up with a better solution than this. So, what? It's let's say that for reservation, it would be booking for an event, venue, and then seat, right? Then you would index this. Would you index the seat or? Yeah, because if I'm querying for all available seats, how would I do that? Let me ask that. What would it look like on the back end? What would the queries look like, and what would be the data that's returning?
For that, let me see. For the available seats, yeah. For that, I offset that into a service.
Okay.
So the service would return you, okay, these are your available seats. The reservation system will then ping that seat service when the user's trying to book. That service is going to then return them, or it's going to basically place those seats on pending, right? And once the payment is approved, they would get marked to reserved.
Well, the thing is that the seat's available on a per event basis, right? So it's not like if I order a seat for one concert for 1 week, I don't get that seat necessarily for the concert next week.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So that's kind of the problem.
I missed the relationship there with the tables up top.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about, right? It's like, how do you want these relationships to actually work? So technically, you have event, venue, and then seats. So since users are going to be browsing by event, they can also browse by venue too, and all the events that happen at that venue for the coming weeks. So you're going to want to, I would definitely want you to clarify the details on those. So to me, it's a very obvious thing to, like, how exactly does this work? Okay. So, Reservation payment. It seems like you're kind of. Let me hear what you actually say here.
Off the. So if you have a payment system, payment. Let's see. Payment. Let's just say this payment, right? And history payment.
Actually, you might just, now that I think about it, you probably just put them in the same database, actually, because an event, venue, and event, you can do joint, you can just use either one as a primary index. And the seat is based on the event you're at, and the seat belongs to a venue, too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of, that's a very interesting thing. So yeah, I think, like, just having all these in the single table is actually the right thing to do.
Okay.
Does the book do that?
Let me see. I'm looking at the tables. Yeah, they have a show seat. Then they have a cinema seat.
And then they have a, okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so they looks like they separate that out.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, like you were saying, it is linked to a specific show in your seat. Because if you book later, right?
Right.
At another date, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm thinking that you might just end up using a single table, and that would resolve your issue altogether. Because that way you can just query all the events, with it by name, across different time, and so on and so forth. Oh yeah, and then the venue, yeah, the event information too, like shows that are, but you only did it by show name and then venue, so you don't have to do search by time just yet. Okay, that's fine. But yeah, like I would say probably at that point it just, what is it? It's just a simple query. But to scale it out, you probably would want to have like a status, what's called a column, where it's like, oh, for query all events that with like a fuzzy search type, with push a T in the name, and then venue is in Dallas or something, and then you want to find all the available seats for that one. That would just be a one simple SQL query.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, so then now I'm very curious how you handle the reservation now. Let's see.
Service.
Okay, I see. So you're querying a cert. Okay, that's actually not fine. That's fine. So okay. So when you're browsing, you click the you just click for all the query, and then you go through the service, this available seat ticket service, in order to query the available actual seats themselves.
Correct.
Yeah. I don't mind if you just make them all one database.
Okay.
It's fine, because you're gonna click. This is a fine relationship to have, yeah. But then there's also like, okay, how does this actually work when there are if there are or aren't seats? Okay, so you have the available seats. If there are seats, then you go to the reservation system. Otherwise, what happens if there's multiple users who are waiting to reserve the exact same seat or exact same event?
I see.
Because if we throw a lot of users at the problem, right? Then we potentially put all of them in the same database, that database gets jammed, or the rows get jammed specifically for that event. Yeah. I would say you have basically hot rows. You have the hot rows problem, right? And so therefore you're gonna need the queue.
Yep. That's what the book does. Yep.
Yeah, I mean I'm just kind of doing it by logic, right? I'm just kind of like cursory glancing the book. Okay, so then now it's like, can you dive deeper on the reservation? Yeah, so you this is you kind of looking back. Can you dive deeper on the reservation and how it will work? Yeah, even you get there. Okay.
Reservation system. User sends over the tickets they want to reserve. User sends over the tickets they want to reserve.
Okay, so so let's see. So this is the user story. If the user sends over tickets they want to reserve, the reservation system sends a signal to the seat service to place the seats on pending. So it'll remove them from the web page. Yeah, like saying, hey, this might be booked. Okay, fine. User says 10-minute book, otherwise tickets will be moved to available. Sure, yes. If the user purchases within the time frame and is successful, the marker status will be reserved. If he and failed, give them an extra 30 minutes to resolve the issues. That's not bad. Now, what do you think would be the next? What do you think would be the logical question from the interviewer?
how are you gonna implement this? Basically how would you implement this, or would be my next thinking.
I would have. I wouldn't say how implemented. I would have said, well, what happens? I would bulletproof it and ask
Okay.
what happens if we get power failure while this is going on, and then we restart the system, and say, oh, we're reading the database. Oh, look, this seed is impending. Can we ever recover from that?
Yeah, yeah.
If it's impending and we don't have like any existing holds, then it'll be stuck forever impending, and that seat can never be booked. So this is where like what can go wrong if the heuristic is going to come into play. Like now you come, it's the same thing like in destruction algorithms, right? You come with a solution, and your first round of solutions, then you got to bulletproof it. You got to say what can go wrong. Oh yeah, what happens if this shit goes poof?
Yeah, I think I have a weak discussion saying we can store sessions in the user's browser, but then I tabled it off because then you have to think of like, okay, you can have malicious users injecting stuff, and you would have another service on your side that can take that and process it, right? So.
Right. So that's a good security angle to think of it from, but it's again, there's almost a more simpler answer that you should be able to go after first. And with this case, it's what happens if our servers fail. Before we handle malicious actors, we want to be able to handle all the controllable errors that are foreseeable on our side. Handle the obvious shit. In this case, the most obvious shit is what happens if our shit breaks. That's fine. So again, you're the way you reason this out is not wrong. It's just, well, you need to be able to bulletproof it better. Okay. And looks like the book also talks about concurrency in SQL, but I honestly don't fucking know how to do that. I just know that it's gonna be a problem. I don't know how to handle it though. So that's what the limit of my knowledge for SQL. What happens?
Yeah, I think from my side, I said okay, it's gonna be consistency. So I assume they would be transactions.
Okay.
But that I think that's implicit, and I wrote down on my diary to better think of that or mention it at least to the interviewer.
Right. Just because you say acid doesn't mean that it is going to actually be acid, right? Remember, these are actually just the heuristic. This is your guiding north compass, right? Explicitly writing that down. So because of that, it's going to be, hey, I'm going to use this to tell me how I should think, but it's not an answer in and of itself. Okay, so that's fine. You're scaling out. You decide to throw a bunch of users at the problem. Fine. Again, then you run into the hot events row. And then you also have, you also mentioned the data itself, right? Where you want to start moving stuff into cold storage. So you might want to start talking about like partitioning, like the event partitioning as well. Because you have if you're talking about everything in like US and Europe, there's a lot of events going on. And people are creating events 6 months to a year out.
Yeah.
So it's like you're gonna have a lot of events to deal with. So you might want to figure out how to partition that data. I think that's pretty obvious to me.
Yeah. I did talk about what's it called, partitioning, but I think my logic was wrong because I said okay, let's do it by metro area. So I would have everything for SF Bay Area, right? Then another one for Los Angeles. But the thing is, that doesn't guarantee the uniformity you want for your system. So that's where I messed up.
Again, if you think about it another way, if you think about like from the user's perspective, there are a whole lot more events happening in LA than there are in Omaha. Like in Nebraska. So in other words, sharding by the city ain't exactly gonna help. I mean, you can shard by city IDs and then distribute a load but I would argue that just by nature of probability and asymmetry, you can have at least 10 to 100 times more events in LA than you are in Kansas. So that shard's going to be super, super hot. And suppose that by bounds of probability, you end up with like, something like Charlotte, North Carolina, and a bunch of other places in another shard. So essentially, you because of how asymmetric these events are, you still end up with a very close to hot shard problem. So that might not be necessarily enough, but again, it's not necessarily wrong. It's just there's better. So metro area, I would say, yeah. Also, like keep in mind these events are seasonal too. A lot more events happening in the summer than in winter.
Oh yeah.
So I would say probably. Yeah, I actually don't have a good answer for you off the top of my head, but being able to have that trade off is not bad. That's at least you need to be able to have that discussion. You know what I mean?
The discussion of how to partition it.
Yes.
Okay.
Like what if I slice it by this angle, what's gonna happen? If I slice it by this angle, what's gonna happen?
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, that's basically it. Overall, I think you just need to dive deeper into the right details, and really think about like, hey, what the fuck can go wrong? So
Okay.
that's I think when you kind of start thinking about like the details of what can go wrong, I think you'll do a lot better. I mean, you're getting closer. Don't get me wrong to like how this is to the answer, but it's just that the low level details that you really need to think about them. That's what I'm gonna say.
Okay.
Other than that, that's my feedback to you. It's looking a little. It's getting better. It's getting there.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, like going forward, I want you to still do a little bit more leak code stuff, or should I say not leak code, but I want a programming interview. I think that needs a lot more work. Your system design is improving, but I think keeping it at like 50-50 pace is fine. I saw 15 rows. Does that mean that you still have quite a few grokking system design ones, right?
Yeah. There's one for nearby friends, Yelp, and then there's one for Uber.
Okay.
And then there's another one for forgetting. Yeah, there's 4 or 5 more I have to do.
Yeah, that's fine. We can look at those next time. But yeah, I'm not gonna give you any feedback on the Uber backend one because I know how that works, and I might say something stupid, and I don't want to risk, my fucking employer's like, hey, why are you leaking this shit? So I'm not gonna confirm or deny anything here.
We'll say it's Lyft then.
Yeah. Why not? Why the hell not? Just plausible deniability. So, but yeah, at least you're making progress. And yeah, and hopefully the checklist is helping.
Okay. Cool.
All right. Any final questions before I let you go?
Yeah. Just there's a problem in EPI, the base conversion one. Like that one, I did not get it at all after doing many examples. So, I guess what do you suggest for those type of problems, right? Where you don't get it at all, or if there's like heavy math involved, or base conversion, just shit like you haven't seen in a while.
If it can logically be figured out, then it's something that you should think about. If it's something bullshit like, oh, it's gonna involve some really weird linear algebra shit, then probably don't worry about it. Okay. But yeah, just pass those by me just to double check.
Okay.
And you should also have the instinct of like, hey, I'm recording quite a bit of these. Hey, too fucking hard entries. Maybe I should go back and rethink this. That should be a warning bell. Okay. Anything else?
Okay, so yeah, just basically stick with like the month for the EPI, right? Like you said.
Yeah, I'm gonna say yeah. Stay with the EPI stuff.
Okay, sounds good, man.
All right. Yeah. Let me know if you have any questions. Cool. And yeah, take care.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks, man.
All right. Later, man. All right. Any questions from the crowd? I have a question. Yeah. 140, 180. If you're too good, it can be 200 plus. Yeah. Because keep in mind, like Russell, 1 year of experience, 250K offer from Google. It's doable, I think Matthias had a 180K offer straight out for Microsoft, if I remember right, the numbers. 177, I think. I don't know. Anyway, my point is that they did it. I would say they did pretty reasonably well on the interviews. So early on in your career, you can get really up there. And to give you like a sense of like my shit, when I first signed on to Apple, I got like a 118 base offer. So if you're complaining about your salary, like keep in mind, like I would say if you do get any offer today, you'll beat my salary when I first started at Apple by like clear 30-40%. And if I can get this far, not giving a shit about salary and getting a low ball like that, you shouldn't care either. Eventually, if you compound your quality, you'll make 2 or 3 times as much. It really doesn't matter, and you'll get there a lot faster. So salary, as long as you have enough to put food on the table, rent, and to save, and you're not spending it like a crazy drunk, and you put away enough to live off reasonably for future financial benefits and whatnot. As long as you're being reasonable and you're being paid reasonably amount, it's fine. There's nothing. Why the hell you're gonna be fussing over like 20-30K more? Books and resources I recommend on system design. So grokking the system design interview is going to be one of them, and DDIA. So if you look at the guide, links in the description, I kind of lay it out. So feel free to click on that. Anyway, as far as the Adobe thing I was mentioning before, let me pull up the what it was. I said 26 million, right? So in other words, if you think that, what? Yeah. So let's do that back at 26 million times 52 times 12. Let me pull up that math again. That's 16,224,000,000. That comes pretty close to the top line revenue that we saw of like 15 billion. And this is just like back of the envelope calculations, right? So if you want to, let's say, get to what's the Adobe market cap right now? Hold up, let me bring that up. So if you want to get to the 144 billion that they're at today, let's say 144 billion, you basically need to say that this is going to be, you're going to collect 8 years worth of, let's keep it simple and not discount things back to today. Let's say that you get 8 to 10 years worth of this money, and then you go poof, right, as Adobe. That'd be what you would pay. That's what 144 billion reflects. Now, if we went back in time, let's say 5 years ago, let's say like peak November around here, like let's say 600 billion, so which is double the current value. So let's round up to 228 billion. So in other words, you would need to say, hey, either we collect 16 years worth of cash, or we grow this number to double. So in other words, let's say like what this is like, let's say this grows to 40 billion, something like that. Now let's say double, 50 million. $31 billion of revenue. I give it like the, and then let's say times 8, times 8, right? That would get you to 240 billion. So, or no, let's say 70 million. Oh no, let's say 6. Let's go 60. 290 billion. So in other words, the back of the envelope says that you're expecting that 27 to 30 billion number to double in the next 8 years. That doesn't sound right. Like that's in order to price things at that multiple, you need to believe that the user base will grow by 2x in 8 years. So in other words, you're assuming 10% year-over-year growth for users. I think that's a mistake. There's only if you look at the breakdown of the revenues, like 60% come from the United States and 40% elsewhere. In order to get 10%, you need to believe that 10% more artists are gonna be in the field in the United States, and then 10% elsewhere, right? U.S. market, I would argue, is pretty saturated if you can think about it. One, because artists, well, for one, Adobe's already pretty much the industry standard, right? So professional artists are not going to be using, all the professional artists who are going to be there are already paying for your service. And so the only thing left are the casual ones, which is reflected in the Figma purchase that Adobe just did. So in other words, I've used Figma for my thumbnails as well. And so because of that, Figma is just basically a simplified Adobe, which means that people who are not professional artists. So in other words, that's your user base that you need to get from Figma. And most casual people like me don't really want to shell out money for Photoshop when all I'm really doing is making simplified thumbnails. And so Figma is great for that. Very user friendly, very easy to design, and all that shit. So I think that's why I think it's a mistake to assume everyone will use Photoshop. Because now you've already captured all the market for the professionals. Now you need to be able to capture the market for the non-professionals. And so if you think 10% the artist field will grow 10% year over year, that's a very, very big mistake. I don't see people wanting to get into art at a 10% rate. That's insane. So that's why I think that this Figma, that's why I think Adobe fundamentally was overpriced to begin with. Now, is it going to be fairly priced at current valuations where you assume that no artists are going to be, you're adding more artists to Adobe? Well, again, like you've already tapped out the professional market. So I think that's a bit of a mistake. And Adobe might be slightly underpriced then, but it depends on how many people are using Figma versus I personally use Canva when it comes to a lot of these things. So, Figma has competitors, and Adobe's already going to take a $20 billion cost to acquire Figma. Now, the question is whether or not they get $20 billion out of Figma, discounted to the present day. I don't know what Figma's financials are, so I can't tell. But the point I just mentioned is that you need to figure out like how much Adobe will grow,
and how much they can jack up their subscription costs by, etc., etc. But I'm going to tell you right now that I don't think the artist field is going to grow. Actually, they're just way too. It's the creator economy is just way too competitive. I think that everyone who is going to be a creator has already become a creator. And so I think all the players are already figured out and the market's already saturated. So I don't see Adobe growing personally. So I think 144 is actually fair. Anyway, or maybe it's even a little more overpriced. I still think 44. I think 144 is still overpriced personally, but. And the only reason like this has occurred is because 5 years ago they switched to a subscription model instead of like purchasing Photoshop outright. So. You do what you want with the information, but I don't think that I would not pay 144 billion for Adobe personally. Anyway, that's it for the stream. Any questions? Going once, going twice. All right, no questions from the crowd. So, thank you all for joining me. I will be back next Tuesday, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We'll be working with C again. Hopefully he makes some improvement. Definitely saw some from the last time I saw him on Tuesday. I think that checklist is really helping when it comes to doing system design and problem solving. So I really encourage you guys to actually do that as well. So thank you all for joining me. Hopefully you learned something from this stream. Join me in the Discord. Follow me on my socials. Link are in descriptions. Other than that, have a good night, and I'll see y'all later.